Hello everyone, this is DC Pro Max from the Hackerbase, and today most likely we have the penultimate lesson on HTML and CSS. And very soon we will move on to the basics of JavaScript. I will show you the wonders of programming, the wonders of what happens on the web. By understanding this, you will at least be able to start grasping the web, understanding what it is and what everything is made of. All the most interesting things are ahead. But for now, let's focus on the base. In the last lesson, I decided to include important topics such as positioning. Now, before we just briefly start, I want to show you just a little bit more about what some of the CSS positioning properties are. I have prepared a file here, and now I will transfer it. So now we will open it, close this, and start from scratch. Control, Command, or Control, Shift, P. Live preview shows previews, reminding you of the extension. If you haven't installed it, you can install this extension from here. Okay. Look, you see three blocks: red, yellow, and purple. In this case, I have set all these blocks. The height and width are 200 pixels, and the parent has a width of 400 pixels and a height of 600 pixels. That is, I place these blocks inside the parent element. Here you can look at the HTML markup. In this case, if you notice this property, position relative. This means it is a relative position. The elements within the space respect each other. Mr. Yellow, step forward. Mr. Purple, advance. Remember, in previous lessons we learned what margin and padding are. Here it's the same. When you specify a position, there are saying three properties. You can, for example, specify a left margin, say 20 pixels, let's say 25, and you can also specify the top as 50 pixels. You see, this is how you manage elements within a parent, so it's all quite simple. I delete it, we don't need it. I did this purely for visibility, so you understand that the position properties have left, right, top, bottom, meaning you can send your element to all four sides, whichever sides you wish. But that's not the most interesting part. There are only three main types of positioning: relative, absolute, and fixed. But the top ones are relative and absolute, meaning the ones you need to remember now as if they were your own name. I will comment out this code. I already have code ready where I set the position to absolute for a block. Look, here's the trick. When we set a block to an absolute position, it becomes bold and rude and stops respecting the space of other blocks. It behaves as if there's no one else around, literally like a selfish person. For this, look, I set each block, well, not each, but the second one, to have a top margin. 3 pixels to the block, 360 pixels. Because if I remove this, look what will happen. That is, the blocks will overlap each other. And accordingly, as I said, the blocks do not respect each other and with absolute positioning, and that's why they overlap each other. It becomes a mess, and a very important thing. Look, if, for example, I even set the block, the third one, to a relative position, it still stays here. Because the relative position does not see absolutes, it does not see absolute blocks, so you see it hasn't moved. Block 3, which is relative, doesn't care about absolute blocks. But if we make it relative, then everything is fine. So let's look at the second block from the top and offset it by 30 pixels from the left. You see what you see. That is, we offset it. And also with the third block by 3, block by 60. And you see we made such a matrix. The cool thing is, there's also a very useful feature called z-index. If you want to bring one of the blocks to the front, we can use this property. Z-index determines the position of elements on the plane relative to each other. Which ones will have the highest priority? Look, we set index 1 precisely. We assign the z-index of 2 to the red element. Accordingly, the larger the z-index, the higher the priority. And if we assign this one a 3, then it will overlevel all of them. So got it, right? The higher the index number, the higher the priority. Thus, we can change the order of elements, determining which overlaps which. Is it clear? Probably. For now, let it be. It's good. I want them to be arranged like this. Everything is great. Everything is perfect. So here's something else you need to know. Look, what is the fixed position? Let's assign one of the blocks a fixed position. The fixed position is the same as having the same properties as the absolute position, but with just one difference. But today we will use the fixed position in our application. Look, when I try, you see it's visible that when I try to scroll, you see this block it. If those scroll along with the parent element, this one doesn't care even about the parent element when scrolling. That is, the fixed position is fixed in space and doesn't care about anything else. In other words, the fixed position is the most brazen and arrogant of all. It doesn't care. It respects no one. It doesn't even respect space, meaning it is fixed, as you've seen on the site. Then there are fixed headers that do not scroll up. This is all about the fixed position, okay? You'll understand what this is all about soon. Let's return to our site. So let's close this. Live preview. So what we'll do, first, we need to find our header. Let's set it to position, be fixed. Look, see, just everything. Our header. Now it doesn't scroll, it has a fixed position. But look, here's the trick. Considering that position fixed, it doesn't respect anyone. See, our content has moved up a bit. To fix this, since the height of our header is 80 pixels, we need to move our container, which holds all the content, down by 80 pixels. Look, we can do this with a margin, but since today we are studying the position property, top 80 pixels, we've fixed the situation. It would be the same if we had set a margin top of 80 pixels. Here you need to look at the context. Look what happened. Ours moved because in our header itself, you can set the top to 0. That is, strictly fix it so that it is positioned at the top. I'm showing you how to resolve such errors on the fly in case you encounter them. Remember, if there's some glitch somewhere, you see, it's not a bug. The computer never makes mistakes. In my experience, when I thought there were some magical, seemingly correct magical bugs, eventually, even after a week, I would find out what it was. The computer does not make mistakes. Let's move on. Let's return to the header. I'm removing the margin of 80 and I still want us to use it here. That's how cool everything is. So we have another little problem. Look, this is something we also went through with you. We will set the header index z-index 1. Now it covers our content, meaning everything came in handy. What did I show them in prison? Everything was immediately useful in practice, which is cool. Now we will do something really cool with this image. Let's take a look. See, we have a div where we placed it. This is the image directly. But in most cases it doesn't work like this. In most cases, instead of placing the image inside the div, they use the image as a background layer for this div. Let's even combine it like this. What does it mean? You'll understand everything now. Here we don't have an image. Let's find everything. Post, image, block, post, image, block. Look, we need to, in this space, directly from CSS, we can place the image as a background image. URL. So what do we have here? Set Images. Look here, we placed an image here. So basically you see, it works like this. Well, you know, in this particular case, you'll understand why we actually did this. So instead of a tag, we placed it as a background layer in this div. Then we need to fix it. It went somewhere, got blurred. Background, I think it's actually called background size, background size cover. So cover will be like this, Also, just in case, background repeat to prevent repetition. Also, just in case, we'll set background position to center. Now, it's definitely centered, which is good. And now we move on to the trick. There is a property when we place an image in a div called background. Attachment, fixed. Look what happens now, you see? This is called a parallax effect. You might have seen it on websites. Here's what we got. Such beauty. Look what I want to do, what we will improve now. I want to make these borders thinner. I don't like them. 1, 2 of this element to add a little flair here. So we have a website like this. I want to stretch this image to the full width. As we see on websites, if it's a desktop device, accordingly, what we need to do for this. You see, I'm going a bit faster now because I hope you're catching on better. Accordingly, I want to bring out this image, div, with this image outside the container. Because remember, the container has a 1K margin from everything. And secondly, I want to remove. I want to set a border. After the enter block, also one, with just 1 pixel. Give it a border-only border. Bottom. At the bottom, let's see what we got. Like this. If it goes further, if this is a website, that's how I like it. This space appeared unnecessarily. And do you know why it appeared? Because when we made the header fixed, we set the margin in the container with a relative position. So accordingly, we need to transfer this to, since after the header, we no longer have a container. And this post image block, we need to apply it to that. We've applied everything. Now our image has moved away from the header, leaving empty space behind the header. We've done all of that. You can just play around with it later when you're working on it to see how it works, and when you're debugging, I remind you to just draw such outlines to see what's happening. For example, 3 pixels. Draw the outline and you will see the element that doesn't occupy. Look, you know what I don't like? For mobile devices I like it, but for computers, let's open it in the browser. For computers. First of all, what I want is to slightly increase the height of this image to make sure our scroll works. So look, here we have a media query, remember? We specified if the width is more than 760 pixels. We have like this. Tick, 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 post image block. How convenient that it highlights. Damn, I remember when I studied CSS a long time ago. There were no highlights. I think I don't even remember. Damn, I used to write in Notepad back in the day. This is all, it's just a fairy tale. Damn, VS Code. It's just a fairy tale to start now. I really wrote all this in Notepad once. Alright. Look, I want to set the height to 500 pixels if it's a desktop. This way it will definitely look good. Watch me until it scrolls. Because we only have 2 posts. Somehow, the header for the post disappeared. Which is very interesting. Look, it's preferable for everything to be consistent, so it's convenient for the post image block. By the way, this post and image block is no longer needed since we referred to this image. We can remove it. And we will move the post image block right after the header. So it's convenient to read and we understand what's after the header. We have this situation and accordingly the container should be as well. After So let's check if I haven't duplicated the container anywhere, not just in the media query. And here it's good. So look, when the position is relative, it doesn't respect our space and we need to specify it everywhere. This is the position relative top 80. Due to this header, we need to step back, but we will get rid of this because we can solve this problem with margin. You see, our title went behind it, and I don't want to specify the position relative every time. 80 pixels. Therefore, I will specify margin top 80 pixels. Now everything is mutually respectful. Or rather, after the image block, we took 80 pixels from here for life desire and set it, and the container was made just like that. Let's see what we have. Let's add a couple more posts. Add them because there are too few to scroll. Look, before we add new posts, you see, the heading goes and the block is separate. Ideally, we should wrap this in another div so that it is consistent, meaning the title each. And so everything is highlighted. You see, when you double click, it shows you closed or open. Now we will format it and wrap another div here for an hour. And in this process, you will gradually come to understand what it is. Format selection with. So look, you see each of these blocks. I wrapped this part in another div so that it should be exactly like this with everything inside accordingly. I will copy this one down here. And simply copy this one here. Let's see. Look, let's do this so that you understand. Post 1. This is purely for making it easier for you to read. Post 1. Post 2. Post 3, please. Post 4. Actually, this is why we need JavaScript. JavaScript will dynamically generate all this. You won't need to write participation. We have a lot of posts. It won't be necessary to add all this manually. Now, let's go back to the browser. See how our Parallax works now. How do you like it? Awesome. Do you feel like you're not? He is the chosen one. When they made Parallax, it's a thrill, a real delight, accordingly, a mobile device. I showed you all this mainly not just to show off with this parallax and fixed header, which are quite impressive features in web design, but so that you understand what positions are and so on, which are crucial concepts in layout design. Additionally, we made some mistakes during the lesson, which you saw firsthand, and it was a valuable learning experience for everyone involved. Sometimes, when we set the position to relative, it stops respecting the space below if there is an element above. Absolutely. Here's a spoiler for you about JavaScript. For those who are not yet familiar with JavaScript, it will generate all this on the fly. We will only define the markup for one post, and JavaScript will handle the dynamics based on the data received from the server. All of this is to be drawn. Since we have created a kind of mini forum, I would say a news site. But why not? Look, many sites that I open look much worse, so it's fine. And actually, let's talk about the styles. I will not be fixing them in this lesson. There are indeed things to fix here in terms of consistency where things should be located, but that will be the next and final lesson. It will be called earlier. I'll tell you about CSS decomposition, all this code, be everything we've done today. I will attach a link to the sandbox so you can view it all, take a look, but again, do it all step by step on your own. Play with it, as they say. If you haven't joined my private club yet, Hacker Base on Telegram, scan the QR code or follow the link in the description. Entry is still open for now. There is already exclusive information on the channel. The channel is already actively enriched. Not being enriched, but enriched in the literal sense. There is one very cool video, I Am Legend, plus 10 years of experience on YouTube. Only part of this video is available as a trailer, but the full video is already on the channel, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so yet. I will tell you how to hack this career, and possibly some videos on this channel will change your life. Just like this information once very coolly changed my life. And of course, it has all grown. With my own experience over 10 years, I was able to, and you will be able to. This was DC Pro Max from the Hacker Base. Thank you for watching this lesson. See you in the next lesson. Bye bye. Hell.